Oh, we're live. Hi, Luke.
Hello. Hey, how's it going?
It's going all right. We definitely haven't talked for a while before this stream started. Definitely
No, it
not.
never happens. That's never how these shows work.
All right. So before we start, I guess I wanted to check with the chat. Is the audio all right? Can you hear? Can you hear us both?
Testing, testing. One, two, three.
I guess we'll see in a bit. So in the meantime, this is the second part of the Building Svelte Society series that I'm doing on the Svelte Society YouTube channel. That's a lot of Svelte Society, Svelte words in there. The first one we did with Peter, or Evil Penguin, or Penguin, the resident penguin in the Svelte chat, basically. He showed us mono repos. So if you're interested in that, it was a great stream. He taught me everything I know about mono repos. Not even joking, because I don't know a lot. So, but yeah, it was really good. He really knows his stuff.
Yeah,
So this week, we're gonna learn about Worktop, right? So
right.
we're basically gonna start on the back end for the CMS that we're gonna use for the website, basically. So yeah, so we got Luke here. He actually made Worktop, which is great. So he should know the ins and the outs. So before we start,
Hopefully.
Luke, who are you?
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Luke Edwards. Spent probably way too much time building little JavaScript stuff here and there, but have been building it for well over a decade and tried to make it useful for other people beyond just myself. But right now, actually for the last few years, I've been a very big fan of Cloudflare Workers to the point where I now work there and am a developer advocate for Cloudflare and Cloudflare Workers. And that's primarily what Worktop is for. Worktop is a web framework that is meant to help you build and organize APIs and just web servers on Cloudflare Workers, but the project itself is now at a point where it's able to accommodate other runtimes as well. So there's initial support for Dino. There's because Cloudflare Workers support the Service Worker API, you can use Worktop to build service workers for the browser for like runtime caching and stuff. And there's a Node support coming soon too. So yeah,
Nice. So I guess we should get started. So let's see here. Ooh, here's my screen.
cool.
Is the font size big enough for everyone? Can you all see this?
You can see it, so that's good.
Yeah, that's the minimum that we need. It would be nice for people to see bigger. All right, is that better?
You can hear Sean right now. Swix in the background. Font size, increase it, increase it.
Increase it, you idiot! Increase it.
For everyone else, that's like a running Svelte Society joke for the last like 2 3 years of just Sean recurringly telling people that their font size is too small, and I was one of those people. Uh, so
It's it's very easy to not really think about it because you can see it so clearly yourself, but then once you go back and like look at it again, okay, so even bigger. Is this looks comically big now? But all right,
yeah,
let's do
you
this. All
probably
right,
want to make your terminal a bit bigger too, like Command plus it once or twice.
good point. I have to do this though. It's not an Electron app. Surprise.
So I guess
All right.
the first place we'll start maybe is up to you, Kev. I Worktop includes a like one of those create scripts, and it will just scaffold something, and we can take a look at
Yep.
the kinds of stuff Worktop gives you. Do you want to do
Sounds
that?
good. Yeah.
Okay.
So do I need an empty folder or do I?
It'll create it for you.
All right. I'll just delete this backend folder then. It was
Okay, so
empty
you
anyway.
can
So
cd into your packages wherever
yep.
you are. Ooh, that is fancy. Okay.
All
And
right.
it looks like you're using PNPM. So
I am indeed.
they all have those create things. So PM create Worktop. And are you a TypeScript guy?
Let's do TypeScript.
Okay,
You can help me if I'm not able to, I guess.
So Worktop, like Cloudflare Workers got me into TypeScript. So I was a big, like, not naysayer, but I was reluctant to get into TypeScript at first because it changes the way you like think about JavaScript, right?
Right.
But because Cloudflare Workers, like, is largely glue code, like you want it to be correct and you want to have confidence that's correct. So that's on its own, like that got me going. And then KV stuff, you can have interfaces to model your backend data, all those sorts of things. So like that, again, third time I'm saying it, that really got me into the TypeScript game. And so Worktop is like, TypeScript is a first class citizen. Like it is, the types right now are Worktop's documentation, but to the point where half of my unit tests are like type tests to make sure that the units are right, and the types are right, and that they play nicely with one another.
Yep.
So yeah, we should do it. If it's a really terrible time, we can rip it out. So back to the terminal command, we have to name the directory. So I think you called it backend, and then
Correct.
PMPM wants you to do -- before you pass flags. So space -- TypeScript.
All right. Like,
Sorry, it's a flag. So two hyphens before TypeScript.
oh, I see. So
Yeah. It's the same way you pass it to npm.
Yeah. Do I need?
You
like
still
that?
need those two.
All right.
I know it's weird. Yarn makes
that is
that part a little bit nicer, but hit enter.
Ooh, I need to upgrade.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So we should have that going. And if we open it up, we can see what's in there. It's just Worktop. It's the next version, which, anyone who's watching, they should be using that now because that's very soon going to be the stable version. And I've also included the Worktop builder, which technically is optional, but it is like an opinionated builder for Cloudflare Workers. You can also use it to build for Dino and all the other platforms I was talking about before. So there's interplay there, but just out of the box, it always assumes Cloudflare Workers. So that's why the build script looks so simple.
All right.
And then I set you up with a wrangler.toml file, which we will spend more time looking into, but this is how you will deploy it, right? So like,
Right.
it's a type JavaScript file, which means like we're taking control of it. We give it a build command, which is this npm run build, and it's going to build. Worktop build will build to the build directory in a indexed MJS file as a module by default.
All right.
So now I guess we should look at the code.
Yes.
So, to get rid of the red, we should go back to your root and reinstall stuff.
Oh, right. So just pnpm install.
You may have to like reload, yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Great.
Okay. This is a bit too big for me. I think that's.
Yeah, those
That should be okay.
overlays can be nasty.
Yeah.
Okay, so the high level overview, this is all a single file because I've had these like create tools before, and it like can be too much if you have a bunch of files going around. But that create new router on 34, that's the main stuff. So const API equals new router, and we're passing in a type argument, right? And I've called it custom because it could be whatever. But if you right click and go to definition, it'll take you up there where you were.
Up there, yeah.
This is the context. So in Worktop, you always receive a request and you receive a context, and the context gets passed around, all of your handlers if you happen to have multiple handlers for that route. But the way this is going, it allows you to have type safe everything within your route handlers, and you just define it in the one place. So basically what's saying here is like, my context object will have a timestamp, which is a number, and I'll have bindings, which are Cloudflare bindings, right? So like these should
Right.
line up with your wrangler.toml or your whatever. And let's do a find for that account variable. It'll be a little bit lower, the second half of the file. There you go. So line 63, let item equals await read. We'll get to that. It's giving back an account, but context.bindings.account, right? So if you hover over that bindings.account, it knows it's a KB namespace. And so it can only be used in that way, as opposed if you try to put in, replace the account with like a JWT something, one of those, like it's either of those.
Oops, sorry. Let's see. JWT
ISS. So those are the other bindings. It will give you an error because, hey, you can't, this function doesn't take a string, but even if you try to use it directly, it's like, this isn't right. Long way to like prove the point that TypeScript is a first class like priority within Worktop. And yeah, so again, for a quick level overview, and then we'll start blowing away this file to do actually what you want to do. I just want to show some of the goodies. So we have the new router defining our API constant. This prepare step, this is something that runs at the beginning of every request.
So this would be something like the handle hook in SvelteKit, kind of.
Yes. Yeah. This is, or, you know, in an express world, you like express, call it, and then .use, and that .use is always the first thing that runs. And you put your logger there, you put your whatever. And so here I'm composing a few functions together. Compose is just one of the, you know, it's just a looper basically. But it's always a route handler. Route handlers are always a request in context. And so it's setting up this context, this timestamp property, which has to be a number because of the type definition. Context defer is way to queue stuff after a response has gone out, or as the response is going out. So after all of the route handlers have run, that's our first handler. So this is basically measuring response time.
Right.
And that happens all within one handler here. The second handler we always want to happen is this cache sync, which we'll get into later. You know, setting up cores for our project globally there. And then our prepare hook is done. So then we start looking at individual routes, right, where we add routes by method and pattern. The home page right now will just reply with an OK. There's an accounts page, accounts route, which takes accounts and then a UID parameter. And again, to show off the first class TypeScript stuff, can you hover over params at the end of line 63?
63, there we go.
So because of how this string is defined, so it's accounts/:UID, Worktop is saying, hey, this params object only has a UID property with a string, right? So if you now put a question mark after UID in the route, in the route, question mark, this is now an optional UID, hover over, so it says it's string or undefined, and that now breaks this function because it might not be there, right?
Cool.
So a lot of IntelliSense going on. Other thing to call out here is this reply thing that we've seen a few times. Reply is just like rest.send in Express world. You know, it takes a status code, but whatever the data it is you're sending gets stringified to, you know, something that actually can be sent over the wire. So this item is actually an object, but it will be cast to JSON automatically because it's still an object. Leaves buffers alone, leaves numbers and strings alone, all that stuff. Trying to go a little more quickly here. Utils.body. So like, again, Worktop is just a bunch of utilities out of the box for you to use. This body accepts request or response and will automatically parse it based off of its content type. So in this post/accounts, it can accept JSON, it can accept form data, it can accept whatever the browser will send it, or the user will send it, and it will always send back an object that the request body had. So that part is kind of useful. Completely opt-in, right? Like all this stuff is opt-in, which some people may not like because you do have to declare imports whenever you want it, but it also means you only get stuff when you use it. Just like we're used to in the Svelte world, right? Like your application grows according to your usage.
Yep, that makes sense.
Another utility there, ULID, just like it's a KV friendly ID generator. We can get into that another time, perhaps.
Yep.
Writing with a KV namespace, we can
Makes
get into that
sense.
when we actually do it. There's JWT stuff here. So this is, at the top of the file, there's an import for this HS256 class, which is like setting up a signer and a verifier for the HMAC 256 algorithm, all using crypto APIs. Like, so it's all lean and using what the platform provides. But so yeah, we set up the factory and then we sign a new token on 101, send that down. And then the last important part is we actually have to start this app. So that 116, like because it's a Cloudflare worker and specifically a module worker, hence these like bindings being passed around instead of being globals, which is the difference in Cloudflare between a service worker and a module worker is, bindings are more explicit, which is a good thing. And then we have to export default something. So the start creates the module worker shape, which is an object with a fetch method, but it takes care of that part for you. So you can just worry about starting it.
Yeah.
And the way Worktop works is all of those platforms I mentioned earlier, web service workers, Cloudflare service workers, Cloudflare module workers, Dino, like all of these different modes. If you go back to the top of the file, they all have, so import start on line 7, right? So we're importing a start function from the Cloudflare worker module.
Right.
But if we change /CFW to /Dino, right? Or anything, like we still get a start method and now it builds, the app is more or less exactly the same and it builds for a Dino compatible runtime.
Yep.
But we're going to stick with Cloudflare because that's what we're here for. And it's, there's more there for us to use.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So should we try running this? Do we need to set up Miniflare maybe?
We do. Yeah. So excuse the long introduction, but we need to set up Miniflare. So back to your package.json in this directory, unless you want it to be a root thing, but
let's do it here.
So dev dependency, line above, we're going to do Miniflare, and I used it yesterday, so I know the latest version is 2.3.0. Or there you go.
It showed up for some reason.
What?
It even showed up.
Yeah, good old VS Code.
Yeah.
So save that. You can reinstall with pnpm. In the meantime, we can work on our dev script. So we have a build right now, but we need a dev.
Yeah. So we've got some questions here.
Okay.
So does Worktop support web service workers currently?
Yes.
Penguin asking.
It does. So if you go, Kev, just go back to the index.ts file.
Yep.
So right now, web service worker is just called /SW. So import start from Worktop /
So it would be
just SW.
SW. Yeah.
So that's great. And we can now have a runtime service worker. The difference is all of these CFW dot submodules. So there's a CFW dot cache and CFW dot KV. Those will not work in a runtime that is not CFW. So that's why that namespace is there. So you can import and build a service worker, but you would have to use worktop/cache instead of worktop/cfw.cache. And you would not be able to use KV. You would not be able to use durable objects, of course, because those are exclusively Cloudflare workers related.
Yep. All right.
Okay, so dev script.
Yes.
Package.json, add a dev command. This should be Miniflare. And I add -w, and that's all I do.
I got it.
Yeah, put a comma at the end, and now the rest happens inside of our wrangler.toml file.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to paste this part because it's much easier
Fair enough.
to do this, but just to line up, TOML syntax is very hard to read. So actually, Kev, maybe you should just show this part on screen.
Yep.
Docs.
Let's see here. So we got another question here about the theme. It's called Bearded. What was it?
Bearded Dragon.
Bearded theme, vivid black. That's a bearded dragon. All right.
Okay. So this is this Miniflare docs, which are great, telling you how to use it. Scroll down a little bit. Oh, no, I lied. Sorry. It's the tab at the top.
The tab at the top.
Yeah. So the Wrangler TOML tab. It's looking at the CLI.
Oh, there we go. Yep.
There you go. So copy that block. That's going to go into here. The one issue, and this is why like TOML is kind of a pain in the neck sometimes, is if you had pasted that below at the bottom of the file, it wouldn't have worked, right? Because TOML assumes that you are going to keep working within this build.upload object.
Gotcha.
Right? So like for everyone else, this has to go before any of these like square bracket sections show up.
I think I've actually run into this before.
I still run into this. So like, yeah, it's fine. So remove one of those lines and change the name to, I think we called it accounts for this, just to all capitalized.
All caps. All right.
Because that's the
account or accounts.
We can check. Go back to the index file, top of the file, account. You're right.
Account. All right. So does that look correct?
That's good. So save that. The last thing that I always use with Miniflare is I persist it. So back to that docs page. Scroll down a tiny little bit. There should be a persistence. Great.
Persistence.
So copy all that. Back to our TOML.
Does it matter where you put it here?
Now it can go at the bottom or anywhere because it has its own namespace. And remove the last persist line because we're not using Redis.
Yep.
Cool. So this is just telling Miniflare like, hey, we actually want you to reuse this data over time, which is great if you're having a long running project. And when it saves its stuff, it's going to save it to this data directory. By default, it goes .mf/kv.
Yep.
Cool. So save that, and we can now hopefully run it. Yeah.
All right. So what's the command here?
It should
dev,
be
of course.
Dev from that directory.
Yeah.
Aha.
Oh, I did something. I removed something here.
Let's remove that. Oh, yeah. It is defined twice. So remove that second line.
Oh, right.
And just rely on the default. Yeah, I bet.
There we go.
Up and running. So Miniflare is obviously like meant for Cloudflare workers. It's reading the TOML file, and the TOML file is telling Miniflare and also Wrangler when you deploy this thing, like, hey, this is a JavaScript project with a build command, so run it, please. And the output is going to be this build/index.mjs file. And so that's what Miniflare did very quickly because the build command is very quick. It's based off of ESBuild.
Yep.
And it's spinning the server up on the build/index.mjs file.
Right. What happens if we go to to the page? Are we gonna see something cool?
We will
Just an
see
okay.
okay at first.
I like that.
My first step to see if it actually is working, like the KV stuff, is so like go back to this get homepage route. It's a little bit lower.
There we
That
go.
one right there. So turn that into an async function. It's going to take the request and the context, and then do something like let item equals, let is my thing, await context.bindings.account. Look at all that help you're getting.
Yeah, didn't even have to type anything.
So dot get or something, dot get, and then some made up key, foobar.
Hello.
Okay, and then I log item to the console.
So just here.
Yeah, and we can see where logs actually show up with Miniflare. Let's make item a object. So like square curly brace item, close curly brace. Just yeah.
Okay.
So save. That should automatically rerun Miniflare. We can see that it did in your terminal. Didn't change anything about the output, but we can see item null. So like the binding is set up correctly. It's empty as it should be, but Miniflare is logging all of our stuff to the console as you would expect coming from any Node program, right? So,
Yep.
So at this point, we have a dev setup and can start actually doing something you want to do instead of me talking your ear off for 20 minutes.
Yeah, what do I want to do? So I wanted to store. So on the current Svelte Society website, we have these recipes, right? And they're currently out of date. So this is partly why we're rebuilding the website and refreshing everything and making it crisp and clean. So I want to store these recipes somewhere. I was thinking I'd store them in KV, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want some kind of, I guess, route that just takes an object of recipe and then stores it in KV.
Okay. Do you want to? That's totally fine. Do you want to do it where like you're always receiving the ID to save it at, or like you receive post/recipes and you are determining a safe ID to save it under?
So you mean automatically generating one, or?
Yeah, like so there are two ways to do it, right? Like you can have the full restful resource, right? Where you like get all of them, post, and it like automatically finds an ID that's safe and then returns you that location with the document, or the other, and then you have a put or a patch to like update it. But the other school of thought is you're always getting from an ID and putting to an ID. So it's literally just a read and a write with a ID and a value.
What do you prefer? So I think we're gonna be in the situation where we're gonna probably update these a bit. So it doesn't make sense to have a put in there.
Okay, let's start with put, and then we can introduce a post later where we're finding an ID.
Cool.
So we can comment out.
Rid of this.
Yeah, let's get rid of it, all of it.
All right. This one we'll probably need, right? Actually not, probably, unless we want to do it in the root.
You can keep it as like a health check just to make sure it's up and running. Okay.
All right.
So API.add and go from here. So add. Yep. Look at that TypeScript. So I namespace all my paths. So recipes is what I would do.
So like this?
Yeah. And then / :UID. So this is assuming that we're taking an ID to start. And that is an async handler because we're going to be doing async stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, let's return a reply to start just to like, so return reply. Oh, the other thing I didn't actually call out is you have to actually return stuff. So the way Worktop handlers work is it's always requested in a context. Whether or not it's a promise doesn't matter. if you have multiple handlers, and we can see in the prepare function, there is that compose method, right? Up a little bit. So it's composing multiple handlers together. But if we look at this first one, it doesn't actually return something, right? It's
the
context timestamp. It doesn't return a response. So this allows the execution flow to keep going because it hasn't gotten what it's waited for. Whereas this cache.sync, what cache.sync is doing is it's looking up the request in the cache API. If it has a match, it will return that response and be done. Like the rest of the application won't go. If there are any context deferrals going, it will run those, but it won't let the rest of the application continue because Worktop found its response. Great, done. Like, get out of here. So back to our route, we have to actually return a reply if we want it to stop. And as of right now, this is our only handler for this route.
So we'll just do that.
Sure, we can do that. We can also, let's just reply with the UID that we put in there. So that's going to be context.params.
Params, right? And then UID.
And it's the UID because it inferred it from the route.
So I guess we can try this, right?
Yep. Gotta love how Safari hides the URLs. Oh, but this is a GET request right now, so we can test it.
Course. Do I have insomnia? Oh no, I should have downloaded this beforehand. Let me find. Let me download insomnia. It's probably the quickest way.
All good.
Insomnia Web MD? No, that's not what I'm looking for.
You would think at this point, like browsers have it built in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like
actually,
a dev tool.
Maybe Safari does. It started for free. Do I have to log in?
No. If you log in, just want you to like save routes and stuff. But I've been using these things for what, 12 years. I haven't made a single account on anything.
All right. Let's see here.
HTTP testing tools hate him.
Let's see here. Insomnia. Oh, thank you, macOS, for saving me from my for security and stuff.
Yeah, this is. I'm not going to read you. I'm just going to accept. But thank you anyway.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just you can't even open it. You have to like right click and open for it to actually. All right, no, skip. All right, create design.rec. Yeah, here we go. Worktop stream. All right.
Is there any way to make this bigger? I can read it, but people on stream might not be able to.
Oh, wow. No, doesn't look like it. I don't know.
And Command Plus didn't work?
No, it stopped working for some reason. No clue.
Okay. Well,
let's see if I can font. Here we go.
Nice.
18. All right. There we go.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Put a recipe. That's not how to get. Put and then localhost 8787 recipes something.
Send.
Hey, it worked. Oh,
it worked.
That's just very small.
That was a different font size. It was like 12 in that. So editor font size. Yeah.
18.
Yeah, that's better.
Anyway, this is probably not the important stuff. It just works.
It works. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Cool. So now let's start introducing some changes to this. So put and post and all those things, not all, but I want to take an actual request body. So let's pull in that utils thing, which is already imported at the top. But let's do let data equals await utils.body and pass in the request.
So like this.
Yeah. So sorry, if
Yep.
right click on utils, just so we didn't actually show where it comes from. You go to definition. I do that all day long. So that's Worktop utils, right? So this is a
Gotcha.
collection of stuff that you probably will do again and again, but like they're just short utilities that are there. Like I inlined my UUID package, my UID package. There's a bunch of stuff in there so that you don't have to deal with finding a compatible thing. It's just already there, ready to go, and it's the
That's it.
optimized version for the web APIs. So like it's using crypto directly and not a node, polyfill, all those kinds of things. And cool. So we have this now, pretty bare bones, but we can reply with that directly just to see what we get.
Let's see. All right.
And again, this reply will auto cast back to string. And so we got no body in this
Guess we can
case.
send something.
No, so this is actually happening, and Worktop isn't automatically catching your error, but it's because there's no body sent, and so it's throwing an error.
Okay.
Which now I'm thinking I should probably catch an error there by default. I'll fix that later. But so we can put a try catch around here just to see what's actually happening, or just start actually sending a body directly.
So just around here.
Sure.
Ooh, wow. VS Code. Here we go. All right. All right.
And then
Ooh, I guess I
move the reply up in there too. And we still will have to return something. So we can return reply 500 in the catch part.
Oh, I see. Let's try that.
Cool. Rerun that. Now I'm curious what that error actually is. Is Miniflare dead?
I guess we'll see. No. Seems to be working.
Oh, I know what it is. It's because it's actually returning nothing. It's just returning a 200. And because the data itself was null,
Oh,
it's returning an empty response. Sorry, not an error.
Yeah,
It's just
of
it's
course.
behaving the way it's supposed to. We can keep the try catch, no problem. But
might as well.
let's actually put requests into what's this, Insomnia, and any type you want, right? Like, yeah.
Wait, surprise! It returns itself.
Returns itself. And then just to help show what this utility does, do you want to change that JSON into a form data? That's fine.
Let's do, yeah, that's the correct one.
It's just going to wipe away what you have. So like foo equals bar, or yeah. So still the same.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I
So
always hated like trying to handle all that stuff. Like,
it's definitely a
it's
pain,
JSON,
but
yeah.
the web APIs make it really simple, and literally all this utility does is check the content type and direct it to the correct thing.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay, so let's actually start doing useful stuff for you. So let's grab out the UID from the context params again.
So where do you want to?
Anywhere at the top is fine. Const, destructured UID equals context params.
UID equal context. Yep.
If you had left it as UUID, it would yell at you.
Yep.
Just because it knows it's not there. So now we have our data there as well, which could you also do const if you would like. I am not a const person, but whatever.
I'm gonna do it. I'll leave it.
So we can leave it there, and now we can actually interact with our KB namespace. So account doesn't make sense anymore. Let's go to the top of the file and change it to something like recipe.
That makes sense.
That one is the document type. For my example, it's a document type. So all caps on line 2020.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So recipe, which is still a KB namespace. You can delete the other two if you want, because we're not using them. We have to go back to our wrangler.toml to update that, because that's what Miniflare's
Oh yeah,
looking
of
at.
course.
Save that. I think Miniflare updates in the background when your TOML changes.
Yep, seems to have rebuilt.
Seems to have. Great. And so now we have to use it. So we can do this the direct way at first. So await context bindings recipe. And this is going to be a put now. So put and our key.
Well, that would be the UID.
It'll be our UID. We'll eventually change this, but
I guess we want to do this, right?
we do want to do that first. And so KV has to have things either as strings, array buffers, or readable streams. So the key was fine. That was already a string. But we're looking at the data now. So if we hover over data,
Yep.
It's currently unknown. And that's because body says, I don't know what this thing is yet, right? So if we put in a type argument, and let's put it back to a count because that's all we have. So utils.body angle bracket before the function call and do a count just because that's all we have right now. We'll change it later. Account.
Account, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. That's from the demo. Now we hover over data again. We can see it's either nothing or a count. And that's because your tilde body can fail or can return nothing. So a count is an object, so we will always have to stringify data when we put it.
So just JSON stringify it?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, well, obviously this can be void, right? Like, so data can be nothing. So like in a real app, you would say if data continue, otherwise return, some 413, like this is not parsable, whatever.
Gotcha.
As of right now, we'll stringify undefined and consider that fine,
Yep.
but that's not how you would typically do it.
Yeah.
And then hover over put just to see what it returns to us. So it returns nothing, but it's just a promise. So if this continues, we can continue on our merry way. We probably do want to actually put the ID into this recipe, right? So
right, yeah.
like data.uid equals UID.
Sorry, data dot.
Just on that 63 there.
Oh, I see. So data.uid equals UID.
Yeah. And remove the type argument of account because it was for demonstration purposes. And okay, no, I'm sorry. Put it back and let's actually define our own recipe type.
Should we just do this?
Yeah. So now rename that to recipe.
The
I'm just interface.
Create a new one in case there's something in there that
there might be
blow up.
So UID will be not a ULID, it's a different type.
What's a ULID?
ULID is a lexicographically sorting ID. It's based off of timestamp. And so in KV, which is eventually consistent data store, right? If you have a bunch of workers all over the world saving stuff, you want some unique identifier, of course, but you want a unique identifier that is easier, not easy, but easier to like get them back in order of time they were saved, right? And so the ULID helps with the uniqueness because it's, timestamp is constantly changing, but it also means that if you have 100 requests per second, you're not at risk of overwriting each other, but when you do a namespace.list call later on, they're more or less going to be sorted in the order that they came in with. So ULID is its own thing, just like a UUID v4, v1, v whatever. It's just its own thing.
So this is a UID, I guess?
This is a UID, which comes from the utils package. But we have to import that.
Yeah, where's that? Utils.
So import type ULID on line 12.
Oh, there we go.
Just do comma UID. And so let's stick that in our recipe, not our account.
Oh, right.
And
guess
then
I should have
ULID,
removed it.
ULID is actually a generic and requires a length. So we'll get to this later, but like lower type argument and put like 11 or something.
Type
So
argument 11.
less than
Oh, right, I see.
the open tag 11 close tag.
Gotcha.
And then
See, this is me trying to do TypeScript. It's just a disaster.
it is a learning curve, but eventually, you know,
I'm
it
gonna
does
get that.
help. I did not think I would be here, but yeah, here I am. Okay, and then so what else do you want your recipe to actually have?
Yeah, I guess let's keep it simple. So just a title, string, right? That's it for
Okay.
now.
And then for simplicity, let's duplicate that UID line, comment it out, and then change UID to also string for the time being, just so we don't have to do,
like this.
yeah, just for now.
All right.
Back to our type argument, data UID. So this is TypeScript saying like, hey, this data might be undefined,
Gotcha.
right? So we should probably, under utils.body, so where your cursor is, next line, because we're in a try catch, we can take advantage of it. So if not data, throw new error.
So like here? No.
Yeah. So new line, if not data.
Jesus Christ. If not data.
Yeah, throw.
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably reply directly. Let's just reply directly. So return reply 400. Like
right.
Missing data, but we have to return.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Because the response has to come out and also stop the execution flow. So now TypeScript says the great data is definitely defined. It definitely exists. We can add our UID. We can put it into our recipe namespace, and we, have data to put in there. Great, saved recipe. Let's do data just so we can see the UID being added in.
So just log it. Sorry, log it.
Log it or include it in the reply. Either way.
Yeah, that's more fun. I can actually see something.
Great.
Then we try sending something.
We can just send that and see what we get.
Yeah, probably an error, right? No?
Nope. So we get the UID that we didn't. In form, multi-part forms, an empty key is literally an empty key.
Oh, okay.
Send. Great. Let's check out the sidebar in VS Code just to see Miniflare doing its persistent stuff. So we see that .mf folder at the top of backend.
Yep.
So we see the key being written, and there's the data that's actually
this
being
is
written.
Cool.
So it's always there, and you can see what your KV namespace has over time. I do want to change your function real quick, your handler real quick, where we're putting to the UID directly, right? Sorry, on line 71, which will limit. If we have a binding called recipe, that's probably fine because you would assume that you only have recipes in there, right? But if you wanted to have multiple things within a KV namespace, which does tend to happen, you would namespace this UID with, something like recipes : and then the UID.
Yeah. Right. So I guess, sorry.
Like a template literal or
the old-fashioned way.
That's right. But so in a Cloudflare world, you want it's based off of prefixes, right? Because with a prefix,
gotcha. I'll just do it the other way around.
Yeah, and I'll show you why in a second.
So recipe like that.
Yep. And so now if you duplicate that line, we'll get into the why. So replace put with list. And that takes an object of stuff. We're just going to see what TypeScript says. So open object and type P. So it takes a prefix. And so with something like this, you can type in, prefix
This is like this.
It's an options object. So like curly braces, prefix, colon, and then recipe underscore as the string, right?
Can you repeat
Colon,
that? Sorry. Colon, prefix.
colon, and then recipe underscore.
Like this.
Yeah. So what this will do if we actually saved it to a variable, it would list all of the keys that have recipe as a prefix. And so this is useful if you do have multiple data types within your namespace, because then you can get all of your recipes really quickly. Or depending on your key pattern, you can do something
Right.
like user colon kev colon recipe, right? And then
Yep.
so when I get a prefix, I can get all of Kev's recipes just based off of a prefix.
Gotcha.
That's part of the lexicographical sorting stuff. And so ULIDs also work in that sense, where you can, I think it's the first 8 characters of a ULID is timestamp based. So you can be like, hey, all of the stuff that came in at, this time window or after this point in time. And that is your prefix. But
Gotcha.
anyway, we can delete the recipes, the list line.
Well, can we just do this to see all of the recipes that we've put
Oh
in?
yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I guess just running this would...
So running this will just be the single key at this point. If you put in a new UID, we will get a response of 2 keys.
Yep.
The
Oh, right, the UID. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. We still get different data. So 1, 2, 3. Perfect. So now we have, now we have 2 keys. It took me a second to see, but we have 2 names in there. And the way list works is it gives you cursors, because you may have more than 1,000 keys or more than 1,000, sorry, more than some number. And you then have to go through and
do it multiple times, basically, right?
fetch the key individually.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can see this reflected in our Miniflare directory yet again, just to prove that it's still being persisted. We have the original unnamespaced key, and then we have 2 namespace versions.
Yeah, nice.
Cool. Okay, so we have our namespace keys, we have our data going. We can very easily add a GET request to like single out these things.
Yep. So that would be slash recipes and then slash UID, I guess. Again, async.
Missing the comma before async.
Oh.
Happens. And same thing, pull out a UID. Perfect.
We don't need this. We don't need a lot of this, right? We just need... So what's the...
So this would be get at this point.
Oh, that simple, eh?
Yeah. It's just, read and write. And so this would come to a variable, so const data, whatever, const recipe. It does, get does take a type argument, I believe. So hover over get. Yep, perfect. So we can put recipe in there.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
And then at the back end, okay, so one thing about KB namespace, and this is before we get into the Worktop utilities for it, let's go up to our put, our,
sorry, here.
There we go, line 71. As of right now, so KB namespace allows you to have different data types. So I mentioned before, like it has to be string, it has to be readable streams, or it has to be an array buffer.
Right.
If you don't specify anything, it always has to be a string, right? Or it will do a type detection and like, okay, this is a readable stream, great, whatever. But we can help clarify what it is. And since JSON is so common, we can put in a third argument here. So after the JSON stringify and do comma JSON as a string. Yeah. Maybe it's type. I'm probably conflating my Worktop types with the native types. But so like an object with type : JSON.
Gotcha. type JSON.
No, okay. It doesn't. This part doesn't matter. But like we know we're saving it as JSON. So like
it's the metadata thing.
It's probably the metadata. So we can remove that and just focus on the get part. So
all right,
forget that pitch. So in the get part, we know this is JSON, so we can tell KV the KV binding that like, hey, just make this an object for us. So
how do we do that?
By default, it's always a string or a readable stream or array buffer. But when we get it, we can definitely say, hey, this is actually JSON. So we can put in a second argument here as a string for JSON.
Oh, there we go.
So now it accepts the type argument because it knows it can actually be an object for once. If we hover over recipe, the variable on the far left, it is going to be an object or it could be null, right? So we should still do our check. We're like, hey, if not recipe, then return a 404.
Right. Gotcha. Whoop. Everything is so big. So let's see here. It should be here, right? Oh, recipe.
And that should be 404 if we're going to be semantics, whatever.
Not found.
Perfect.
All right.
Otherwise, we return 200 with the recipe and it gets cast to JSON automatically. Cool. So we can save that and we can hit it with our same.
Gotta
any of those.
copy
Perfect.
this one. I should have used
Actually.
something. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it will still work. So if we get with there, that will be okay. There's no body. I don't know how to
Yeah,
get
exactly. Yeah. What the hell? All right. It works. It works. Amazing.
Let's put in like 123, which is an ID we haven't done yet. Just to test the 404. Great, not found.
Yeah, nice.
Cool. So we have our get and our put. Do you want to start introducing the post, or do you want to take this somewhere else?
I don't know. I think we've been going for almost an hour, actually.
Oh yeah.
So I was gonna ask you, like, are there any other things that you want to talk about, like highlight with Worktop?
I mean, if you just go back to the top of this file, there is a bunch there. There are a lot more utilities that are not shown. Like there's a whole crypto API where, there's a crypto API that the JWT module is using, right? Because that's doing the signing stuff, that's doing the whatever, and that API on its own is pretty useful. There's a buffer API, which I've used outside of Cloudflare workers because it's like I've used that in a web setting on its own, which all of these things except for the CF namespace, the CFW namespace modules, like they can all be used as their own packages and used anywhere that web APIs are supported.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the buffer one's great. The crypto one is great. I use JWT actually in Node because Node does support the crypto web API in Node 15 plus. I don't know, just like have a look throughout the type definitions, really, if you want to get started with Worktop. But like there's a lot there, and the idea is you really just piece together stuff as you want. And to the point where we can look at the build directory now in your sidebar. And it's going to be kind of hard to read, but like it will show you what's actually being used. And cores is there because we imported cores. You can keep scrolling down, and it's all minified and it's all ready to go. But like it's really not that big to the point where the entire router itself, which is the core of Worktop, is like 600 bytes or something, and it's efficient.
Pretty small.
Yeah, my biggest Cloudflare worker is like, I've never hit the script limit, which is a megabyte, but like it's because of Worktop and because of like these reusable utilities, anything Worktop uses to make itself, you, the user, can import and use them and like tweak them for other things. So it's really just a matter of diving in and finding what's useful to you.
Yeah. So, yeah. What what would you do if you actually hit the limit? Like, say you have like a massive application with like a billion routes. Is that,
It is possible to reach out and get the limit raised. Obviously,
see.
don't do that as the first thing, but like there
Right.
are a lot of applications, coming from a node world that do need quite a bit of polyfills to get going. Like you have SDKs embedded, you have like, we announced recently, like, you can use the Mongo Realm, hard word for me to say, Realm
Right.
driver, and like the Stripe SDK and stuff. And like you start using real world SDKs in there, like it gets kind of big pretty quickly. So the limits themselves are going to be raised for everyone soon, if not already. I forget on my timing on that, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Sounds
if
like
you
it's
have
going
a
to be very
problem,
soon then.
probably soon, if not already. But
Yeah.
support's always really like easy to work with that kind of stuff. So if you are running into it, that should not be a blocker.
Right. I'm probably not going to run into it. It was just
No.
something I was thinking about. All right. I think that's it for the stream. Thanks for bearing with me with my low amount of TypeScript knowledge and knowledge in general.
No, you did great. I mean, my first like weeks in TypeScript did not go like that, even through like dictation help. So you did really well.
All right. Good. Good. Thanks for coming on, and yeah, maybe I'll invite you for another stream in like a couple of months and see where I'm at.
For sure.
And see if
Yeah.
you have any suggestions for what I can improve and whatnot.
Yeah. We talked about doing auth, so we haven't actually got to auth, but
Yeah,
we should. And
definitely.
then last thing, if it's okay to say, I am, as part of my job at Cloudflare, I'm working on a project called, well, it's a production SaaS template. And so it's at github.com/cloudflare/production-SaaS. And what that is it's actually a Worktop project, but it's our effort at Cloudflare to show people how to build real applications using the entire Cloudflare stack. So, there is authentication in there already. There's a whole lot of KV usage. There is durable object usage. There will be R2 usage. So it's like building it happens to be a CMS, but a real CMS application that is multi-tenant, that can handle, striped invoicing and like monitoring and email alerts and all these things all wrapped up
All
into
the
one
good
repo,
stuff.
all the good stuff. So follow along with that project to see how to actually get started and, clone it and deploy it if you want. It's like ready made. So
Nice. I dropped a link in the comments as well. So yeah. All right. I guess that's us. Bye,
cool.
everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.